Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Le Chevalier, and today we are doing something different. Today we are reading the short stories of Tyranny. We're going to start with Under New Management. Hello, future tyrants. My name is Paul Kirsch. I'm a narrative designer on Tyranny, and I have the pleasure of introducing our first of several short stories, Under New Management. This story showcases a small detachment of the Scarlet Chorus, one of several armies that serve the Overlord's conquering ambition. My goal was to give readers a first glance at the brutality and community that go hand in hand with the Scarlet Chorus. To the untrained eye, they might look like hardened, bloodthirsty killers. Viewed through a filter lens, you will find something very different, a complex, self-correcting ecosystem with a rich and diverse culture. If the distinction isn't obvious while the Scarlet Chorus is raiding your village and burning your house to the ground, you aren't looking closely enough. Now that I have whetted your appetite for uncompromising brutality, enjoy Under New Management. Paul Kirsch, Narrative Designer. Under New Management. Someone ought to kill that bastard. The declaration came as a whisper, but it went off like a gong in the circle of killers. Crowtrap glanced up at the others around the fire. Their makeshift weapons of tarnished bronze and chipped wood all lay close at hand, and each wore the tattered red of the Scarlet Chorus. 7 in total. They represented the full contingent of their gang, minus the absent leader who had stepped into the overgrowth to empty his bowels on a stump, as he so proudly declared was his intent. The gang made camp on the slope of a mountain pass, one of many that separated the Northern Empire from the Tiers. The exhausting march into the wilderness permitted them to light a fire without any concern of attracting enemy patrols. Their boots were grey with the ashes of a village they had set to the torch, and their nerves were aflame with the many joys of the raid. A good day's work. As the sun set, their thoughts had turned away from brutality and skewed inwards. This should have been the gang's time for spinning tales of battles won, but apparently they had other plans. Someone ought to kill that bastard. It didn't matter to Crowtrap which of them had said it. The words hung in the air as if written in their campfire rising smoke, demanding to be addressed. The Trap gang had spent the last fortnight moving south at a tireless pace, clearing a path for the disfavored army that marched in their dust. It should have been an uncomplicated stretch of raids and plundering, but their coordination was all wrong. Miscommunication and bad timing got in the way of simple operations, and every failure chiseled at their resolve. For the first time in recent memory, Trap gang was weak. Custom held that the boss was to blame. If the strongest couldn't keep them together, then he needed to be replaced. Mantrap had taken them far as a gang, maybe it was far enough. The other 6 recruits turned into Crow to gauge her reaction. She was a Scarlet Fury, one of the elite soldiers of the Howling Mob, an old deep scar stretching from ear to ear, and her bony features were marked with the criss-crossing evidence of duels both old and recent. She hunkered down on the balls of her feet, turning a bronze knife in her hands. She flickered the blade in the direction of her compatriots like a finger pointed in challenge. The gang intuited her meaning at once. Convince me, maggots. Rattrap, a recruit whose uniform hung like dirty rags over his broad shoulders, cleared his throat. Mantrap takes a great share of everything, he says. Spoils, vitals, war wives. One of us could divide it up better. Without him, we could go to bed with full bellies for a change. The suggestion came out more as a question, and everybody heard it as such. Crow shook her head, keeping the blade pointed at him. If anyone doubt the plan, the gang will never back it. What else? Rat Trap looked to each of the other nonplussed gang members in turn, a panicked beast seeking quarter, finding none. If you was boss, he started, directing his words at Crow, you'd portion the spoils as was fair. Some murmurs of accord grew in volume, but Crow cut that off at once. She shook her head and snapped her fingers at Rat Trap. Not good enough. The big man flinched. Without a word, he offered Crow a shaking hand, biting his lower lip. In a quick, blurring motion that no eye could follow, Crow slashed the recruit's palm and flicked the blade to send a splash of blood sizzling into the fire. Rat Trap withdrew and clenched his palm with a hiss, but nodded to Crow. "My thanks for your mercy," he said. Fear turned into love as Crow Trap nodded to accept his contribution. The wound was a useful punishment. It could mean his death the next battle to come, unless he fought twice as hard to think past it and keep his hands steady. Either possibility served the Scarlet Chorus in some way. Crow turned her attention to the other gang members, swinging her blade in the slow motion of a pendulum. "Anyone else? Time is short, and the boss returns. Convince me." Sitting across the fire from Crow, Foxtrap spun a length of red silk between her fingers, a garrote that was hungry to be used. She grabbed Crow's attention with a stare of deeply intensity between hers that hung over her brow. We are marching ahead of the disfavored to soften the southern peaks for surrender, she said. Peasant work. We should be occupying every village in our path and conscripting from the locals. She glanced at the assembling gang, taking in the nods and grunts of agreement. Once we're back to capacity, Trap Gang can pull a real dent in this war. We won't need Graven Ash and his ironclads to finish the job. Crowtrap weighed the matter. The gang was 16 members strong. At the start of the campaign, disease, brawls, and a modicum of resistance had whittled them down to a skeleton crew. Inviting new blood to join the ranks was always a high priority. If they took more time to recruit from the village and outlying farms, the gang could be fairly strong by the time they reached the bastard city and the real war to come. She shook her head to dismiss temptation and jabbed at the earth 3 times with her dagger. March now, conscript later. The Archon needs a victory. Heavy sighs preceded a cloud of embers leading from the campfire. All agreed that Crowtrap was right, though the gang has no reason to enjoy it. Their patron Archon, the voices of Nerat, will be none too pleased if one of the gangs needed to resupply and recoup their losses before they had chance to prove themselves in a decisive battle. Foxtrap extended her palm without a word. Crowtrap took the customary offering of blood. Fox barely registered the pain and turned it back to the gang. Anyone else? Before the next gang member could speak up, a snapped twig announced a new presence just beyond their circle. Mantrap lumbering into the perimeter, pushing aside saplings and hosting his bell around his expansive gut. "Why so silent, my ninny shitters?" he shouted as garrulous as ever. "We have every reason to celebrate after today's red work. Cat, fair as a song. Snake, tell us about the time you..." Cutting off his own speech, Mantrap halted just outside the perimeter. He sniffed, turning his gaze to each of his red-clad killers in turn. "Something's wrong," he said. "I smell at least one bloody palm among you, stinking mongrels." He turned to Crowtrap with an implied question. Her knife was still out, and his attention drew to it like a compass to true north. The silence lengthened. Crowtrap swept her gaze around the circle one last time. equally prepared to execute a plan or let the matter drop. Anyone else? A stopover recruit with a body like a siege tower lifted his head to regard Crow. His hands up to his elbows were still red from an early kill that day. His brows sloped over tiny eyes that twinkled with determination. Crow leaned forward to listen. Bertrand hadn't spoken to anyone since the start of the campaign. He was a man of few words, which she couldn't respect as a woman of none. "We kill him," he said. "We'll kill him because it's fun. If he can't defend himself, then he's no boss of mine." "What's that?" Mantrap reached out over his shoulder for the hammer slung across his back. Crow had heard enough. With a flick of her wrist, the blade left her hand, striking over the heads of the gang like a shooting star. When it came to a sudden stop, it was buried up to the hilt in man's arm, spinning it to his shoulder. "The fuck, Crow!" Mantrap says in a clove of spitefully. He reeled from the blow, but didn't dare try to excrete his arm. She will kill him faster than he could think to try. "After I saved you from the Bleaky brothers, then who gave you that scar? I thought we were mates." She shrugged, turning to the gang. Crowtrap drew a line across her throat. None of them needed any help interpreting her meaning. They took up arms and swarmed Mantrap like ants to an injured spider, sweeping and clawing and picking away at him, filling the night with screams and wild, untrammeled howling. The deed took far longer than it should have, but Mantrap needed to release the deep pleasure of satisfying kill. Crowtrap held her spot and watched the carnage play out, knowing that the night could have gone no other way. A slow trickle of blood seeped downhill until it touched the edge of the campfire. She glanced at Bertrap, who was likely unmoving, and caught his attention. "You are boss now," she sighed, letting her fingers do the work in the absence of her blade. He nodded, hiding any reluctance if he felt it. "If I must. You make the calls, though. I can give them courage, but I don't got a mind for thinking ahead." She stood and kicked dirt over the fire, letting the shadow pulse into the camp, welcoming them. "If I must." They marched at first light, Bertrap with his new hammer, and Crow flowing close behind. They went toward one man short, but everyone who saw them fight in the bastard city said that Trap Gang was stronger by tenfold, though none of them could guess why. The end. And that's all the time I have for today. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a blast. I was the Lost Chevalier, signing out. Bye bye.